By March 1936, Italian aircraft were systematically gassing Ethiopian civilians. Over 1,700 people died in a single market day attack. 30% of all Ethiopian war casualties came from banned chemical weapons. But this is where most documentaries would end, with Ethiopians as helpless victims of European brutality. That's not what happened. Ethiopian communities developed survival strategies that saved thousands of lives. They preserved evidence when the world tried to destroy it, and their fight for justice reveals a truth about international law that still shapes conflicts today. This is part 2, the cover-up. While Italian commanders expected terror to break Ethiopian resolve, communities adapted with strategies that completely surprised their attackers. Local commanders developed early warning networks using traditional horn signals that could carry across mountain valleys. Communities learned to recognize the distinct sound of Italian spray aircraft from ordinary fighters. Ethiopian women played crucial roles as intelligence gatherers, identifying natural caves and rock formations that provided protection during attacks. They learned to recognize contaminated water sources by watching animal behavior. If birds wouldn't drink from a stream, neither should humans. Ethiopian healers developed treatments for chemical burns using traditional medicines combined with knowledge from the few trained Ethiopian medical personnel. Ras Imru's Northern Army began targeting Italian supply depots where chemical weapons were stored, forcing the Italians to divert troops to guard poison gas stockpiles. Ethiopian forces conducted successful raids on Italian positions even after surviving multiple chemical attacks. But the most important resistance was intellectual. Ethiopian leaders understood they were fighting not just for military victory, but for historical truth. When diplomatic appeals failed, Ethiopian representatives methodically gathered evidence. They photographed victims, collected witness testimonies, documented attack dates and locations, and preserved contaminated soil samples. Ethiopian intellectual Tekle Hawariat, who served in the resistance, would later write, "We knew the world was not listening to our pleas for help, but we also knew that someday history would demand an accounting. We made sure the evidence would survive, even if we did not." This documentation would prove crucial when Ethiopia later sought justice. But first, they had to survive the world's betrayal. So where was the international community while all this was happening? Ethiopia had been a League of Nations member since 1923 and pleaded desperately for intervention. The League did condemn Italy's invasion and voted for economic sanctions. The problem was, the sanctions were a joke. They were weak, implemented too slowly, and most importantly, didn't ban the sale of crucial war materials like oil, steel, or coal. This wasn't incompetence. It was a calculated betrayal. The big powers, especially Britain and France, were playing a cynical political chess game. They were terrified of rising Nazi Germany and wanted to keep Mussolini on their side, to stop him from joining forces with Hitler. The secret Hoare-Laval Pact revealed their true intentions. They planned to gift 2/3 of Ethiopia to Italy to keep Mussolini satisfied. They were willing to throw Ethiopia under the bus to maintain fragile peace in Europe. The plan fell apart after public outrage, but the message to Mussolini was clear. Nobody was going to seriously try to stop him. Meanwhile, the United States, not even in the League, actually increased exports to Italy. American oil companies fueled the very aircraft dropping poison gas over Ethiopian villages. On June 30, 1936, Emperor Haile Selassie made a final desperate appeal to the League of Nations in Geneva. Standing before delegates who had already decided his nation's fate, he delivered a prophetic warning. "It is us today. It will be you tomorrow." Selassie asked the League, "God and history will remember your judgment. What reply shall I have to take back to my people?" The Ethiopian delegation presented overwhelming evidence: photographs of gas attack victims, medical reports from European doctors, intercepted Italian military communications, testimony from Red Cross personnel. European newspapers dismissed Ethiopian claims as unverified, despite abundant documentation. The League abandoned Ethiopia completely. By May 1936, Italian troops marched into Addis Ababa, and Mussolini proudly declared a new Italian empire from his balcony in Rome. The war had left hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians dead, a huge number from chemical weapons. But the horror wasn't over. On February 19, 1937, after a failed assassination attempt on Italian Viceroy Rodolfo Graziani, Italian forces unleashed the Yekatite 12 massacre. 19,000 to 30,000 Ethiopians were murdered in Addis Ababa alone over 3 days. Governor General Rodolfo Graziani maintained stockpiles of chemical weapons throughout the occupation, issuing public warnings that any resistance would meet the same fate as the rebels of 1936. When British forces finally helped liberate Ethiopia in 1941, Haile Selassie returned carrying 6 years of meticulously documented evidence against Italian war criminals. Now came the test. Would the world finally deliver justice? Ethiopian efforts to achieve justice revealed the depth of international hypocrisy. Haile Selassie submitted formal charges to the United Nations War Crimes Commission, demanding prosecution of Italian officers who had used chemical weapons. The evidence was overwhelming: witness testimony, medical documentation, captured military orders, photographic proof. Yet not a single Italian officer faced trial for crimes committed. They pushed for extradition of officials who ordered gas attacks, like Marshal Pietro Badoglio, but the Allies blocked them. The reason was brutally simple: Italy had switched sides near the war's end and was now seen as a key ally against communism in Europe. Prosecuting Italian officials was politically inconvenient. Cold War politics trumped justice. Military archives remained classified. Academic histories minimized chemical warfare. The story disappeared from international consciousness, but Ethiopian historians, oral tradition keepers, and diaspora communities refused to let the truth die. In Ethiopian highlands, where Italian aircraft once dropped mustard gas, children play in fields their great-grandparents fled in terror. The land has healed, the memory has not. The Italians called it pacification, the League called it regrettable, the world called it forgotten. But Ethiopians never forgot. Their testimony stands as proof that truth survives, even when the powerful try to bury it. But here's what I learned making this series: the world hasn't changed as much as we like to think. The same calculations that abandoned Ethiopia in 1936 still decide which victims matter today. And if you want more untold stories of African resistance, colonial brutality, and the truth that mainstream history won't touch, subscribe and hit that notification bell. What story should I investigate next? Let me know in the comments.